The sound of gunfire split the evening air as Katherine Porter clutched her shawl tighter around her shoulders and rushed down the muddy main street of Willow Creek. It was 1875, and the Wyoming Territory was as wild and unforgiving as the day it had been claimed. Her heart pounded in her chest, not from the sound of bullets, those were commonplace in this rough-hewn town, but from the fear of being late to meet the stagecoach carrying her younger sister. The autumn air bit at her cheeks as she hurried past the saloon, ignoring the drunken calls from cowboys who had started their evening revelry early. Katherine, or Kate as most called her, had lived in Willow Creek for 3 years now, establishing herself as the town's only female doctor despite constant resistance from those who believed medicine was a man's profession. The stagecoach appeared in the distance, a cloud of dust following its approach. Kate straightened her simple blue dress and tucked a loose strand of chestnut hair behind her ear. The coach hadn't even come to a complete stop before a young woman with the same dark hair leaped out, nearly tumbling into the dirt. "Kate," her sister Emily exclaimed, throwing her arms around her. "Oh, thank goodness. I thought this journey would never end." Kate embraced her sister tightly, relief washing over her. "You made it safely, that's all that matters." A tall figure emerged from the shadows of the stagecoach depot. "This all your luggage, miss?" The deep voice belonged to a man Kate had seen around town but never formally met. Lucas Prescott, the new ranch hand at the Rockingham. "Yes, thank you," Emily replied with a smile too bright for Kate's comfort. Lucas tipped his hat politely, revealing eyes the color of a summer sky. His weathered face suggested he'd spent years under the harsh western sun, yet he couldn't have been older than 30. "Name's Lucas Prescott. Happy to help you ladies with these bags." "That won't be necessary," Kate interjected quickly, reaching for one of the suitcases. "We can manage." Lucas raised an eyebrow but nodded respectfully. "As you wish, Dr. Porter." Kate was surprised he knew her profession. Most newcomers assumed she was simply a nurse or midwife until corrected. "Actually," Emily said, "I'd be most grateful for the assistance, Mr. Prescott. I'm afraid the journey has left me rather fatigued." Before Kate could protest, Lucas had gathered Emily's luggage and was waiting for direction. "We're just down the street," Kate said stiffly, nodding toward a modest 2-story building with a sign reading Dr. Porter hanging beside the door. They walked in uncomfortable silence, broken only by Emily's occasional comments about her journey from Boston. Kate studied Lucas from the corner of her eye, noting how he carried the heavy bags with ease, his movements steady and sure, like a man accustomed to hard work. At the door to her combined home and medical office, Kate fumbled with her keys. "Thank you for your help, Mr. Prescott. Good evening." Lucas set the bags down gently. "My pleasure, Dr. Porter." He turned to Emily with a polite smile. "Welcome to Willow Creek, Miss Porter." After he departed, Emily let out a sigh. "My goodness, Kate, was that necessary? He was only being kind." Kate pushed open the door, ushering her sister inside. "You don't understand, Em. Men like that don't offer help without expecting something in return." Emily rolled her eyes. "You've become so cynical. Not everyone has ulterior motives." Kate didn't respond as she helped her sister settle into the spare bedroom. She couldn't explain to Emily what 3 years in the frontier had taught her that kindness often came with unspoken expectations, especially from men. Especially since Chicago. The next morning, Kate rose before dawn as usual. She had patients to see, including old Mrs. Henderson, who was recovering from pneumonia, and the blacksmith's son with his broken arm. To her surprise, Emily was already awake, dressed in a pretty yellow dress that seemed impractical for the dusty streets of Willow Creek. "I thought I'd explore the town today," Emily announced over breakfast. Kate frowned. "Alone, I don't think that's wise, Em." "I'm 22, Kate. I managed a cross-country journey. I believe I can handle a small frontier town." Kate wanted to argue but knew her sister's stubborn nature well. "Just be careful and be back before dark." The day passed slowly for Kate, her thoughts frequently drifting to her sister. Emily had always been the more trusting of the two, quick to see the good in people. It was a quality Kate had once possessed herself, before Dr. James Blackwell had shattered her trust back in Chicago. By mid-afternoon, Kate was treating a miner with a deep gash in his arm when she heard commotion outside. The door burst open and Emily rushed in, her face flushed with excitement. "Kate, you'll never guess. I've been invited to the harvest dance this Saturday." Kate tied off a final stitch in the miner's arm. "By whom, Mr. Prescott?" "Lucas," Emily corrected herself with a smile. "I ran into him at the general store and he was ever so kind, showing me around town." "He's quite knowledgeable about—" "I don't think that's appropriate," Kate interrupted, cleaning her hands in the basin. Emily's expression fell. "But why? It's a town event. Everyone will be there. You've only just arrived and you hardly know the man." The miner, clearly uncomfortable with the sisters' disagreement, thanked Kate hastily and departed. "Kate," Emily said once they were alone, "I understand you're protective, but I'm not a child. And Lucas seems like a gentleman." Kate turned away, busying herself with organizing her medical supplies. "They all seem that way at first," she said quietly. That evening, Sheriff Wilson arrived at Kate's door with an urgent request. A ranch hand had been thrown from his horse at the Rockingham and needed immediate attention. Kate gathered her medical bag, and after ensuring Emily would stay safely at home, set off with the sheriff in his wagon. The Rockingham Ranch was the largest in the county, owned by the stern but fair Maxwell Mason. As they approached the ranch house, Kate saw several cowboys gathered outside the bunkhouse. Among them was Lucas, his expression grave. "He's in here, Doc," Lucas said, leading her inside. "Took a bad fall, hit his head on a rock." The injured man lay on a narrow bunk, unconscious and pale. Kate immediately set to work examining him, noting the severe contusion on his temple. "He needs to be monitored carefully," she told Mr. Mason after her examination. "There's swelling in his brain. I've done what I can, but the next 24 hours will be critical." "I'll stay with him," Lucas volunteered. "I don't mind the watch," Mr. Mason nodded approvingly. "Prescott's got steady nerves, lost his own brother to a fall like this back in Texas, knows what to look for." Kate glanced at Lucas, seeing something unexpected in his eyes, a flash of old pain quickly masked. "I'll return tomorrow morning to check on him," she said, gathering her supplies. As she prepared to leave, Lucas followed her outside to the wagon. "Doctor Porter," he said quietly, "I hope you don't mind me asking your sister to the dance. I meant no disrespect." Kate stiffened. "My sister is new to town, Mr. Prescott. She doesn't understand the nature of men out here." A flicker of hurt crossed his features. "I understand your concern, but I assure you my intentions are honorable." "I've heard that before," Kate replied coldly, climbing into the wagon. Lucas's jaw tightened. "Not all men are the same, Dr. Porter. Some of us were raised to respect women." Kate didn't respond as the sheriff clicked to the horses and the wagon pulled away. She felt Lucas's eyes on her back all the way down the long drive. Over the next few days, Kate found herself at the Rockingham repeatedly, monitoring the injured cowboy's slow recovery. Each time, Lucas was there, having apparently taken on much of the care between her visits. His gentle handling of the injured man and meticulous adherence to her medical instructions surprised her. On her third visit, Kate found herself alone with Lucas as they changed the bandages on the sleeping patient's head. "You have experience with injuries," she observed, watching his careful movements. Lucas nodded. "My brother. Like Mr. Mason said, he had a similar fall. I cared for him until—" He didn't finish the sentence. "I'm sorry," Kate said softly. "It was a long time ago." Lucas cleared his throat. "Your sister mentioned you trained in Chicago. That's impressive for a woman." Kate tensed. "I worked twice as hard as any male student to prove myself worthy of the opportunity." "I don't doubt it." His voice held genuine admiration. "My mother wanted to be a nurse during the war, but her father wouldn't permit it. She taught me a lot about caring for the sick, though." Kate studied him, finding no mockery in his expression. "Your mother sounds like a remarkable woman." "She was," he said simply. They worked in companionable silence for a few minutes before Lucas spoke again. "Miss Emily told me she'll be staying through winter," Kate nodded. "She needed a change. Our parents passed last year and Boston held too many memories." "I'm sorry for your loss," Lucas said, and again Kate was struck by the sincerity in his voice. "Family's precious out here, not something to take for granted." As Kate prepared to leave, Lucas walked her to her horse. "About the harvest dance," he said hesitantly. "I understand your concerns, but I give you my word that I'll be a gentleman to Miss Emily. If you'd prefer to accompany us as a chaperone, that would be fine by me." Kate considered him thoughtfully. "Emily has her heart set on going," she admitted. "And yes, perhaps I will join you." A smile brightened his face, transforming his weathered features. "That would be just fine, Dr. Porter." The night of the harvest dance arrived with a crisp autumn chill in the air. The town hall had been transformed with lanterns, autumn leaves, and bundles of wheat. Nearly everyone in Willow Creek had turned out, dressed in their finest clothes. Emily was radiant in a burgundy dress that had belonged to their mother, her eyes sparkling with excitement as Lucas arrived to escort them. Kate had chosen a simple navy blue gown, practical but elegant. "You both look beautiful," Lucas said, offering each sister an arm. The dance was lively, with a local fiddle player and pianist providing the music. Kate watched from the sidelines as Lucas danced with Emily, noting how he kept a respectful distance while still guiding her confidently through the steps. "Never thought I'd see the day when Dr. Porter attended a social function," came a voice beside her. Sheriff Wilson handed her a cup of punch. "You're usually claiming patients need you." Kate accepted the punch with a small smile. "My sister insisted." "Prescott seems taken with her," the sheriff observed. "He's a good man, you know." "Stood up to the Henderson boys last month when they were harassing the widow Johnson about her property. Didn't throw a single punch, but those boys left with their tails between their legs." Kate watched as Lucas laughed at something Emily said. "I don't know him well enough to judge." "Well, in my line of work, I've gotten pretty good at reading men. Lucas Prescott is solid, not like some of the drifters who come through." When the musicians announced a break, Lucas and Emily returned to Kate's side, both flushed from dancing. "Kate, you haven't danced once," Emily chided. "You must join in the next set." "I'm quite content watching," Kate assured her. Lucas studied her face. "One dance wouldn't hurt, Dr. Porter. Even doctors deserve some enjoyment." Before Kate could refuse, the mayor approached their group. "Dr. Porter, might I have a word, Mrs. Clayton is feeling unwell." Kate excused herself, secretly relieved for the distraction. She found Mrs. Clayton, the mayor's very pregnant wife, sitting in a side room looking uncomfortable. "Just some false pains, I think," the woman said after Kate examined her. "The baby's not due for another 3 weeks. Nevertheless, you should rest," Kate advised. "Let's get you home." By the time Kate had settled Mrs. Clayton and assured the anxious mayor that all was well, she returned to find the dance in full swing again. Emily was dancing with the blacksmith's apprentice, but Lucas was nowhere to be seen. Kate stepped outside for a breath of fresh air and found Lucas sitting on a bench, staring up at the stars. "Is everything all right, Mr. Prescott?" He startled slightly, then stood. "Dr. Porter." "Yes, just getting some air. Your sister is quite popular with the young men of Willow Creek." "Emily has always made friends easily," Kate said, remaining at a distance. Lucas gestured to the bench. "Would you care to sit? The night sky is particularly clear tonight." After a moment's hesitation, Kate joined him, careful to leave space between them. They sat in silence, looking up at the vast canopy of stars. "I used to think the Texas sky was the biggest in the world," Lucas said softly, "but Wyoming might have it beat." "It's one of the things I love about being out here," Kate admitted. "In Chicago, the buildings block much of the sky." "May I ask why you left Chicago? It's not common for a woman doctor to choose a place like Willow Creek." Kate stiffened, the familiar pain resurfacing. "I wanted to go somewhere my skills were needed, where I could practice without interference." Lucas seemed to sense her discomfort and changed the subject. Your sister mentioned you delivered twins last month. That must have been challenging. Kate relaxed slightly, more comfortable discussing her work. The Miller twins? Yes, it was a difficult birth, but mother and babies are thriving now. They talked about her patience and his work at the ranch until the music from inside changed to a slower melody. Would you honor me with a dance, Dr. Porter? Lucas asked suddenly. I don't dance, Mr. Prescott. Everyone can dance, he said with a gentle smile. It's just moving to music. I prefer not to, Kate said more firmly. Lucas studied her face in the moonlight. May I ask why? Kate looked away. I don't like to be touched. There was a moment of silence before Lucas spoke, his voice quiet but clear. Then you'll only feel my respect. Kate turned back to him, surprised by his response. There was no mockery in his expression, no challenge, only understanding. Thank you, she said simply. They returned to the dance just as Emily was searching for them. There you are. I was worried you'd gone home without me. The remainder of the evening passed pleasantly, with Kate even joining in a group dance that required no partner. When they finally walked home under the starlit sky, Emily chattering happily between them, Kate found herself stealing glances at Lucas, seeing him in a new light. The following weeks brought an early winter to Willow Creek. Heavy snows made Kate's work more challenging as she traveled to outlying farms and ranches to tend to those who couldn't make it into town. One particularly harsh day in December, Kate was returning from delivering a baby at a homestead 5 miles from town when her horse stumbled in a snowdrift. The animal recovered, but Kate was thrown, landing hard in the deep snow. Pain shot through her ankle as she tried to stand. The blowing snow disoriented her, and her horse, spooked by the fall, had bolted. Kate knew the danger of her situation immediately. Nightfall was approaching, the temperature was dropping rapidly, and she was at least 3 miles from town with an injured ankle. She began to limp in what she hoped was the direction of Willow Creek, fighting against the wind and her growing fear. The cold seeped through her heavy coat, and her injured ankle throbbed with each step. After what felt like hours but was likely only 40 minutes, Kate heard the sound of approaching hoofbeats. Through the swirling snow appeared a rider, and relief flooded through her as she recognized Lucas on his sturdy bay gelding. Dr. Porter, he called, dismounting quickly. Are you hurt? My ankle, she managed through chattering teeth. My horse threw me and ran off. Without hesitation, Lucas removed his heavy coat and wrapped it around her shoulders. We need to get you warm. The Rocking M is closer than town. Can you ride? When Kate nodded, he lifted her carefully onto his horse, mindful of her injured ankle, then mounted behind her. Lean back against me, he instructed. You need the warmth. Too cold to protest, Kate allowed herself to rest against his solid chest as he guided the horse toward the ranch. By the time they arrived, she was barely conscious, her extremities numb from cold. The ranch house was warm and bright with lamplight as Lucas carried her inside, calling urgently for assistance. The housekeeper, Mrs. Abernathy, immediately took charge, ordering hot water and blankets while Lucas gently laid Kate on a sofa near the fire. Her clothes are soaked through, Mrs. Abernathy declared. She needs to get out of them before pneumonia sets in. Through a haze of cold and pain, Kate became aware of Lucas turning to leave the room. I'll wait outside while Mrs. Abernathy helps you change, he said quietly. The next hours passed in a blur as Kate was helped into dry clothing, her ankle wrapped, and warm broth spooned into her. By morning, though still weak and sore, she was alert enough to assess her situation. Her ankle was badly sprained but not broken, and while she was chilled to the bone, she had escaped frostbite. Lucas appeared at the doorway of the guest room where she'd been placed. May I come in? Mrs. Abernathy is right behind me with breakfast, Kate nodded, pulling the blanket higher. Thank you for finding me. How did you know I was out there? Your sister was worried when your horse returned without you, he explained, remaining respectfully by the door as the housekeeper bustled in with a tray. I was in town delivering supplies and volunteered to search. The snows let up, but the drifts are too high for travel today. I've sent word to Emily that you're safe." Over the next 2 days, Kate was forced to remain at the Rockingham, her ankle too swollen for travel. Despite her initial discomfort at being dependent on others, she found herself touched by the care she received. Mr. Mason insisted she stay in the main house rather than the bunkhouse, and Mrs. Abernathy treated her like a daughter. Lucas visited regularly, bringing books from Mr. Mason's library and news from town, but he never intruded on her privacy. He kept a respectful distance, seemingly understanding her discomfort without her having to explain it. On the third morning, feeling stronger, Kate made her way downstairs to find Lucas alone in the kitchen making coffee. "You're up," he said, surprised. "How's the ankle?" "Much better. I think I can return to town today if someone could provide transportation." Lucas poured her a cup of coffee. "I can take you in the sleigh after breakfast, but only if you're certain you're well enough." Kate accepted the coffee gratefully. "I have patients who need me." "You're allowed to heal yourself first, you know," Lucas said gently. "The town has survived a few days without its doctor." Kate studied him over her cup. "Why are you so kind to me, Mr. Prescott? I haven't exactly been welcoming toward you." Lucas leaned against the counter, considering her question. "My father used to say that kindness costs nothing but means everything. Besides," he added with a small smile, "I admire your dedication to your patients and your protective nature toward your sister." "About Emily," Kate began, "I should apologize for my initial hostility. I was concerned about your interest in her." "No apology needed." "A sister's protection is a precious thing." Lucas hesitated. "Though I should clarify, while I find Miss Emily charming, my interest in calling at your home hasn't been solely for her company." Kate felt a flush rising to her cheeks. "Mr. Prescott, Lucas," he corrected. "After pulling you from a snowdrift, I think we can use first names." "Lucas," she amended, finding the name unexpectedly comfortable on her lips. "I'm not. I don't." She trailed off, unsure how to express the wall she'd built around herself. "Katherine," he said softly, using her full name for the first time, "I understand there are reasons you keep people at a distance. I respect that. I'm only asking for the chance to be your friend." The sincerity in his blue eyes made something shift inside her, a hairline crack in the protective shell she'd constructed after Chicago. Later that day, Lucas drove her back to town in the sleigh, carefully navigating the snow-covered roads. Emily was overjoyed to see her sister, embracing her tearfully when they arrived. "I was so worried if Lucas hadn't found you." "But he did," Kate reassured her, patting her back. "I'm fine, truly." Over the following weeks, as winter tightened its grip on Willow Creek, Kate found herself opening up to Lucas's friendship. He often accompanied her on medical calls to outlying areas, saying it wasn't safe for her to travel alone in such conditions. At first, she protested, but she soon came to appreciate both his company and his assistance. During these journeys, they talked about everything: books they'd read, places they'd seen, and eventually their pasts. Kate learned that Lucas had grown up on a small ranch in Texas, lost his parents to influenza when he was 20, and cared for his younger brother until his tragic accident 2 years later. He'd been drifting ever since, working ranches across the territories, until something about Willow Creek made him want to stay. One evening in January, as they returned from tending to a trapper's wife with a difficult pregnancy, Lucas asked the question Kate had been dreading. "What happened in Chicago, Katherine? Who hurt you so badly that you don't want to be touched?" The directness of his question startled her, but after months of his patient friendship, she found she wanted to answer. "His name was Dr. James Blackwell," she said quietly, staring ahead at the snow-covered landscape. "He was my mentor at the hospital, one of the few doctors who supported female physicians, or so I thought." Lucas remained silent, giving her space to continue at her own pace. "He was married, but he pursued me. When I refused his advances, he became vindictive. He started questioning my diagnoses in front of patients, altering my treatment plans, undermining my authority." Kate's hands tightened on the reins. Then one night he cornered me in the supply room. He said no one would believe me if I reported him, that he'd make sure I never practiced medicine again. Did he?" Lucas's voice was tight with controlled anger. "No," Kate said quickly. "A nurse walked in before, but it was enough. I couldn't stay after that. I applied for positions in remote areas, places desperate enough for a doctor that they wouldn't care if that doctor was a woman." Lucas was quiet for a long moment. "I'm sorry that happened to you, and I'm sorry that my gender has given you so many reasons to be distrustful." "Not all men," Kate found herself saying, glancing at his profile in the fading light. "Not you." Their eyes met briefly before she looked away, but something had changed between them, an acknowledgement of deeper feelings neither was ready to name. As winter gradually yielded to spring, Kate noticed a change in her sister as well. Emily, once so enamored with Lucas, now spoke frequently of Matthew Collins, the blacksmith's apprentice she danced with at the Harvest Festival. When Kate questioned her about it, Emily laughed. "Oh, Kate, Lucas is a wonderful man, but it was clear from the start his heart was engaged elsewhere." At Kate's puzzled expression, Emily added gently, "He looks at you the way father used to look at mother, like you're the answer to a question he's been asking his whole life." Kate dismissed her sister's romantic notions, but she couldn't deny the warmth that spread through her at the thought. The spring thaw brought new challenges to Willow Creek. The melting snow caused the creek to rise dangerously, threatening several homes built too close to its banks. The entire town mobilized to reinforce the embankments and move valuable possessions to higher ground. Kate was treating an elderly man who had slipped in the mud when a shout went up from the creek's edge. A section of the bank had collapsed, taking a young boy with it into the swollen, icy waters. Without hesitation, Lucas plunged in after him, fighting the current to reach the child. Kate watched in horror as both disappeared under the churning water, then reappeared several yards downstream. Lucas had the boy clutched to his chest with one arm while struggling to reach the bank with the other. Several men formed a human chain, managing to pull them both to safety. The boy was conscious but terrified. Kate quickly checked him for injuries while Lucas sat nearby, shivering violently, his clothes soaked through. "Get him to my office immediately," Kate ordered, pointing at Lucas. "He needs dry clothes and warmth before hypothermia sets in." At her office, Emily helped the exhausted Lucas into dry clothes borrowed from the sheriff while Kate tended to the boy, whose parents arrived moments later, tearfully grateful. When Kate finally turned her attention to Lucas, she found him sitting by her stove, wrapped in blankets, his face pale. "That was either the bravest or most foolish thing I've ever witnessed," she said, pressing a cup of hot tea into his hands. "Couldn't let him drown," Lucas said, his voice hoarse from swallowing creek water. Kate checked his pulse and listened to his breathing, concerned by the rattling sound in his lungs. "You could have both drowned. What were you thinking?" "Wasn't thinking," he admitted. "Just acting." Impulsively, Kate took his face in her hands, forcing him to look at her. "Don't you dare die of pneumonia after that heroic display, Lucas Prescott. I forbid it." A weak smile curved his lips. "Yes, doctor." Despite Kate's best efforts, Lucas developed a serious chest infection. For the next week, she barely left his side, moving him into her spare room so she could monitor him day and night. Emily helped prepare poultices and medicines, while the men from the Rocking M took turns sitting with him when Kate needed rest. On the 7th night, Lucas's fever finally broke. Kate, dozing in a chair beside his bed, awoke to find him watching her, his eyes clear for the first time in days. "You saved my life," he whispered. Kate shook her head. "You nearly threw it away. Do you know how afraid I was, how afraid we all were? I'm sorry for frightening you." Kate took his hand, no longer hesitating at the contact. "Just don't do it again." Lucas's fingers tightened around hers. "Katherine," he said softly, "I think I'm in love with you." She stared at him, her heart racing. "You have a fever." "Not anymore," he countered. "My mind is perfectly clear." "I love you. I have since that night at the Harvest dance when you said you didn't want to be touched, and I promised you'd only feel my respect." Tears filled Kate's eyes. "I don't know if I can be what you want. I'm still damaged." "You're not damaged," Lucas said firmly. "You're the strongest person I know, and I don't want you to be anything other than exactly who you are. And if I'm never comfortable with physical closeness, then we'll find our own way," he said simply. "There are many ways to express love, Katherine. I'm willing to discover them all with you at whatever pace feels right." Kate leaned forward, resting her forehead against his. "I think I might love you too," she whispered, "and that terrifies me more than anything." "We'll face that fear together," he promised. By early summer, Lucas had fully recovered and returned to work at the Rocking M, though he now spent most evenings at Kate's home. The town buzzed with speculation about the relationship between their doctor and the quiet cowboy, but Kate found she cared less about gossip than she once had. One evening in June, as they sat on her porch watching the sunset, Lucas took her hand gently. "I have something to ask you." Kate's heart skipped. "Yes. Mr. Mason is getting older. He's offered to sell me a piece of the Rockingham, the north section with the old cabin. Said I've earned it with my work these past 2 years." Lucas's thumb traced circles on her palm. "It would need fixing up, but it could be a good home for a family." "Lucas, are you asking?" "I'm asking if you might consider becoming my wife, Katherine Porter. Not now, not until you're ready. But someday." He looked into her eyes. "I promise you'll never feel anything from me but respect and love at whatever pace you set." Kate's free hand moved to touch his face, a gesture that had once seemed impossible. "I don't need someday, Lucas. My answer is yes." They were married that autumn, in a small ceremony behind Kate's office, with Emily and the entire town in attendance. As they spoke their vows beneath a canopy of golden leaves, Kate felt the last of her protective walls crumbling. That evening, as Lucas carried her over the threshold of their newly renovated cabin, he set her down gently and stepped back, giving her space. "Welcome home, Mrs. Prescott," he said softly. Kate took a deep breath, then stepped forward and placed her hands on his chest. "I want to be touched, Lucas," she whispered. "By you, only you." His arms encircled her with infinite tenderness. "For the rest of our lives," he promised, "you'll feel nothing from these hands but love and respect." And as his lips met hers in a gentle kiss, Kate knew she had finally found her safe harbor in this wild, untamed land, a love built not on demands or expectations, but on respect, patience, and the quiet strength of a man who understood that true love waits. 5 years later, Katherine Prescott still served as Willow Creek's doctor, but now she did so from a clinic beside her family home. Lucas had built it for her with his own hands, just as he'd built the cradle for their 2-year-old daughter, Sarah, and was now crafting a new one for the child growing beneath Katherine's heart. Each night, as Lucas gathered his family in his gentle, respectful embrace, Katherine marveled at the journey that had brought her from fear to this overwhelming love, a love that had taught her that being touched, when it came from the right hands, could be the greatest healing of all.